kind of hard to put into words what a weekend like this last one means, but I'm going to do my best. How's it going, guys? Rafa the Pickleball Tech Dude here. And if you can't tell, my voice does sound a little weird today. And I wish I could say it was because of all the yelling and screaming and everything that I did this past weekend, but it is unfortunately because I'm feeling under the weather. But today, just wanted to take you guys through one of the coolest events that I had the chance to be a part of, which is the Nerdy Tourney that was put on by Bread Butter Pickleball. Just kind of wanted to talk about how the weekend went, how the tournament went, of course, and then I'll finish off with a couple of paddles that I picked up that some of y'all might find interesting. Nerdy Tourney 2K25 was held in Vero Beach, Florida, where Bread Butter is HQ'd at their HQ, where they actually have 2 indoor courts in their sort of warehouse setting down there. And I was lucky enough to be a part of it this year. Just to get invited was honestly a huge honor for me. I don't think you can overstate how well thought through the event was, not just in terms of the tournament itself, but also in terms of the people who were invited and everything outside of it. I just think it was super well run and put together. So shout out to Aurora over there on Team BNB for helping facilitate everything, literally. It was pretty incredible. But yeah, I think that this event, more than anything, was sort of a celebration of pickleball and sort of Bread Butter's way of saying thank you to a community of people that have, in one way or another, been part of their journey in the sport. It's funny. I don't think that Doug or Aurora or whomever was running Bread Butter's social media from 2 years ago will remember this, but when I first reached out to work with BNB, they were one of the only brands to say no. And the main reason was not only because I wasn't super well established, didn't have a ton of videos up, but they also were very upfront with how picky they were with what type of content creators they work with. They even, I won't name any names, but they directly pointed out that they weren't working with certain reviewers because every single one of their reviews was positive. That was honestly, at the time, obviously made me a little bit upset because even when they were at 500 to 1,000 followers, I knew with their marketing strategy and how they were approaching the game of pickleball, I knew that they were going to be a company that I would be very interested in working with. But beyond that, I think it was sort of a testament, something that I didn't see until later on, to how interested they are in real feedback, how they were really committed to actually making their product better. They didn't want yes men to just provide advertisements all the time. They wanted people that were genuinely going to analyze their product, give them real feedback, and they weren't going to, blackmail you for giving them any bad feedback or anything like that. So it's rare to see today for sure. I can, again, not name names, but definitely several companies out there that I haven't spoken super positively of, and you may not see their products on the channel ever again, but that is just sort of how the business goes. And even though I disagree with it, I think that B&B always took the right philosophy with regards to that. So when they invited me out to this Nerdy Tourney, there was no way I was going to say no. Not just because of the location, which, by the way, absolutely beautiful. Like pristine beaches, just really tropical, just oceanside vibes out there. There goes my voice again. It was a beautiful place to do it, and it was the right place to do it. Just bring together, for those of you that don't know, 28 different, not just reviewers, but also just content creators and a couple of locals that are sort of true to the B&B brand that were a part of the tournament itself. Got to meet a lot of people outside of it as well. And it was pretty incredible. being back in the same room, especially with a lot of other, especially reviewers that I've been on, I've been to other events with in general, was a really, honestly, could have been used as a really strong opportunity for BNB to talk a lot about themselves and make this a lot about the new upcoming releases that they have. And I have a couple of those that I'm going to share with y'all at the end of the video. But honestly, one of the cool things is that it was nothing like that at all. They were really focused on just putting on a really fun tournament for us to participate in, making sure that we had a good time outside of that. And, you know, while we did get our hands on some of the new upcoming releases, it was never about that. We were not obligated to use any of the new releases, although we were obligated to use Bread and Butter paddles in general. That was what we were limited to for the tournament. There was nothing about them. Honestly, if I hadn't asked any questions about the paddles, I wouldn't know anything about them other than what they feel to hit with. So I think that was really cool of them to just sort of say, hey, you know, here is just a celebration that we wanted to put on for you guys. Here's some new stuff we're coming with, and go enjoy. So, and enjoy I did. It was so fun. Again, I'm in the room with a lot of people that I've already met and am friends with and see pretty frequently. But it was also really cool because now that we expanded this event out to 28 or so people, it was an opportunity for BNB to bring in other content creators that I hadn't had a chance to meet yet. Guys like Matt's Pickleball, Bobby from Pickleball Blast, we also had Matt from Dinking and Driving, Logan Brown from Sunday Dinking Club, just to name a few. And all of these guys are so much more interesting in person than they are behind the camera. I think a lot of them describe me as pretty similar to what I look like behind the camera. But I think just based off of watching some of the other guys' content, a lot of you would find it very interesting what they would be like in person. For example, David Yang, who runs Tickle My Pickleball, another fellow reviewer of mine. I've met him way before now. But what doesn't come across in his videos is how truly funny he is in person. He's also extremely in shape. The dude had his shirt off half the weekend just to flex on the rest of us. But he's gonna inspire me to get in the gym, as is Kyle from Dink Smash Media, Braden from Pickleball FX pod co-host. That guy has dropped like 60 pounds in less than half a year, and I don't know what he's on, but I need me some of that. He definitely got bitten by the gym bug recently, and he's very vocal about his journey over there. So if you aren't following him and you're interested in fitness and things like that, especially from the point of view of somebody who doesn't do it for a living or isn't that kind of influencer, Kyle's a great person to follow. But yeah, all of these guys, everybody is incredibly nice and incredibly genuine in person. I would say David cracking as many jokes in the way he was is a huge surprise. I think a lot of you would also be surprised at Brian Lim from Building Pickleball. So, and I'll talk more about him in a moment because he had a huge role in the actual tournament side of things. But he is nowhere near as serious as he looks in his videos. He has this sort of dark, high contrasty, serious aura in his interviews and in his videos and his channel in general. It comes off to me as kind of edgy and kind of like, what if you wanted to disrupt the entire pickleball industry? Like that sort of vibe. In person, nothing like that at all. He is one of the most lighthearted and sort of goofball people to be around. Genuinely, he makes everybody feel like you should have a special on Netflix. It's just, he's the ultimate hype man, and he makes incredible content. So he's just he's a great guy, and you know, as is everybody else. It's just, thinking through everybody in my head that I met one by one, no, it was, again, it goes back to how intentional Bread and Butter was who they were inviting, because there was nobody there that I didn't have an absolute blast, just sitting down, chatting with, learning more about personally. It really makes you root for how everybody's journey, in this space as content creators and as people that are really trying to just make pickleball, more attractive, to more people, and make it easier for you guys to make purchase decisions and know what's going on in the industry and things like that. Everybody is truly doing their part. Now the tournament. So the tournament was super interesting because I got there Thursday night. I got there with Lewis from Pickleball Pursuit, JJ from JJ Pickleball, and a couple of others. And we all went down to the warehouse that couple of days early just to get some games in. David Yang from Tickle My Pickle, and Farmer Lanky. So Lanky from Farmer Lanky Pickleball was also there. We all went down to the HQ to get some games in early, and holy shit, was it humid. It was about 150% humidity in Florida all weekend, and you could feel it. The warehouse was going to get an AC unit for tournament day, which was absolutely critical, because when I tell you, I went in to play with a red shirt, not even a cotton shirt, like a red performance polyester shirt, into the BNB HQ. And I emerged maybe 2.5 hours later with my shirt being a completely different color, just sticking to me, absolutely drenching me. I'm not kidding. It was just moisture and hot and thick, and it made it so hard to play. I was genuinely worried about how my stamina was going to hold up on Saturday, but luckily in between Thursday and Saturday there was an AC unit installed in there just so that we could play on that Saturday. So that was very, very smart move, and really well thought ahead by BNB. But in the tournament, for any of you that didn't watch, I revealed slowly over the past 2 or 3 pods that I did with Aaron, the details in terms of my involvement. First and foremost, my partner. So my partner was Chris Olson from the Pickleball Studio. Couldn't think of a better partner for me. Chris peddles the 3.5 at best agenda a lot, even in his merch. But he has gotten way, way, way better ever since those days. He also has, of course, one of the biggest channels in all of pickleball. He has the biggest reviewer channel by a pretty wide margin. So going into it, honestly, with my headspace, I was really nervous. I automatically know that when I talk about Chris right here with you guys, it's always like, oh my God, you got to play with the Pickleball Studio. Versus when Chris talks about me over on his channel, that's a lot of people's first time potentially learning about me and who I am. Like, who the fuck is this pickleball tech dude? Who is that guy? Right? And so I was pretty nervous, not just because I did want to do well in the tournament, just for bragging rights, but also because of this. When you play with somebody as high profile as Chris is, it's always something that is in the back of your mind. But Chris himself, by the way, is, again, incredibly genuine person, much more lighthearted in person than he is behind the camera. He also truly, and this most likely is, all part of his success, that guy is obsessed with pickleball. It sounds like that should be obvious. We're all obsessed with pickleball. I'm obsessed with pickleball. But that guy is truly, truly obsessed. I mean, on Friday night, we went out to some local courts over in Vero Beach, and we played probably 3.5 hours. And after that, and then the day before, playing in the warehouse for several hours, I was done by maybe 6 or 7 o'clock when we went back to the hotel to have dinner. I was done with pickleball. I was going to rest up until tournament time, and that was going to be that. Not only did Chris play the entire time that we were out there on Friday, once we finished dinner, Chris was fully ready to go back and play more pickleball at like 8 or 9 o'clock. That I was dog tired. I was like, I'm ready to have a couple beers and go to bed. Chris was ready to go and play more pickleball. And then again, even after Saturday, back on Sunday morning, after we played the tournament, played even more pickleball afterwards, he wanted to go and play pickleball again at 9 a.m. the next morning. He is looking for any and every opportunity to get out on the courts and play, which is just, again, I think it's a recipe for his success. And when you do it, but when you do something like this for a living, and especially for me, I was done with pickleball by Sunday. I haven't played the last 2 days or so because I played so much. But Chris would genuinely play 6 or 7 hours every single day if he could. And so that just, again, it's a testament to, where he's at headspace wise and where his channel is heading and how he's gotten so good at what he does. So, that was a major surprise to me as well, as how freaking obsessed that guy is. But I did play with Chris, and then I also, you can probably see it right here, this was my paddle of choice. So I used the Bread Butter Fat Boy for the tournament. I weighted it with a ethos grip at the base and about 3 grams of tungsten tape across the very, very top 12 o'clock position. Why did I use the Fat Boy? Because that is the gold birthday edition paddle. None of us got to choose which birthday edition paddle we got. At least I don't think I didn't. But when they were sending me the Fat Boy, I knew it had to be the paddle that I was using. If I could go back and use the paddle that I really wanted to, I probably would have gone with the Filth Hybrid or Filth Elongated. But what's the fun in not using your gold paddle? So I just decided to put that limitation purely on myself. A couple of others did follow suit and were using their gold paddle versions, but they definitely, I think Isaac from Pickleball Studio and Lewis from Pickleball Pursuit were the only other 2 that used their gold paddles, and they were definitely they got the paddles that they liked the best and were going to use anyways. So I don't know if there were any gold filths anyways, to be fair. But yeah, that was I'm glad that I sort of started that trend of using the gold edition paddles. That was cool. So I showed up, I was using that. Chris ended up using the Psycho paddle, which again, I will show you guys at the end. He was using that. He just showed up and decided to use that paddle. That's another cool thing about what any of us are capable of doing, is we can just like show up and use whatever is there because we have so much experience doing it. And so that's what he decided to do. And in the end, if you guys want me to go and put out the full gameplay of everything that went down, or purely just the gameplay of me and Chris's games, let me know. I analyze the games always in my head afterwards, but if you guys want to see it in real time and see what I was thinking or what I was noticing about Chris and our opponents that we played, definitely do let me know. But here is let me look at the everything that went down. So essentially, what you're looking at here is the bracket on the Nerdy Tourney side. So the way that this was set up is that if you won your first game, you were put into the Nerdy Tourney bracket. If you lost your first game, you were put into the toilet bowl bracket. So this is the list of the teams that all made it into the Nerdy Tourney bracket, minus there are a couple of teams here that did lose their first game, but won their second with enough of a point differential to make it back into the Nerdy Tourney bracket. It's a little bit confusing, I'll be honest. They did have Paul Lee from Ella Pickleball going and putting the tournament together. It makes sense in the end, kind of how it shook out. But when you have 14 teams that you need to get through all in one day, one game to 15 each, not just regular scoring, not rally, definitely limits the number of games that we were all able to partake in overall. So something for the future. I would definitely love to see. I'd love to do this again, but have this be a full-on, maybe like 2-day round robin of playing every single team that's involved once. I think that is going to be a lot more telling of really who is better and who isn't. In this tournament, it really came with playing. Some teams only played 2 games or so. Me and Chris only played 2 games. Many others only played 2. It's kind of hard to gauge, like for real, who is good and who isn't. But regardless, with the time constraints, it just made sense to do things the way that this was. But to get back here, this is the Nerdy Tourney bracket minus Kyle and JJ and John and Will. So me and Chris played John and Will round 1. We ended up beating them 15-8. John, I'm showing gameplay right now of that game against John and Will, hopefully, because you guys never get to see John from behind the window. So for those of you that don't know, John Park is Speak Pickleball. I know a lot of you probably follow him, and if you don't, you definitely should. He sort of does updates and does a little bit more, he's more behind the computer, sort of the wizard of the written word in the pickleball space right now, if you will. And he's been very adamant that he will not go behind the camera because he is so camera shy. We'll get him out of his hiding place one day, but this is as much as you're gonna get for now. That guy is what a character. He's really fun. He's a really chill sort of New York guy in real life, but his writing is pretty incredible, so would recommend checking him out. But we beat him and Pickleball Will somehow pretty handily in that first round. Will is a super crafty player, so that game I was definitely a little bit more nervous for, but we pulled out the win. But once once those 2 teams were sent into the losers bracket, if you won your next game with enough point differential, I believe you could move back into Nerdy Tourney. So they ended up coming back into our bracket, and this is kind of what it looked like. Actually, that's not true. So Kyle and JJ did not make it back into the bracket. I'm not sure why it looks like this, but this is how pretty much from seed 2 down to 9 is, and these weren't seeds based on ranking or anything. This is just sort of a list of the teams. Basically 2 through 9 was Nerdy Tourney. And if you look at Toilet Bowl here, these were the Toilet Bowl teams. So you had, again, these are just the teams that lost in their first round. Kyle and JJ are listed here too, which is interesting. But essentially John and Will ended up making it back to our side. Kyle and JJ ended up staying where they were because they did lose their second game as well. What was funny is, if we get down over here, I think this is where, yeah. So this is the finals, of the Toilet Bowl. And it was definitely pretty shocking to me, but essentially this is a combination of the teams that lost 2 games in a row, with perhaps the worst point differentials. I think that was how that was supposed to shake out. But I was definitely expecting to see like an Isaac and Sleeves down here, just based on Sleeves' duper. Sleeves can ball. They ended up winning their first game 15-12. Like Isaac was carrying for sure, but Sleeves was holding his own. Nowhere near as bad as his duper made him seem. And he's also just again another just like chill, kind of laid back guy. Lives with his little community of just pickleballers. Kind of just like, he seems like he lives like the nomad lifestyle almost, that you all like you wished you could do at one point in your life. Like, what if I just quit my job and just lived in a yurt in the middle of the desert? He has that kind of vibe to him, which is hilarious. But he definitely held his own over there with Isaac. But here in the last 2, you'll find my original partner, Brian Lim, Building Pickleball, and Luca Berg. And Luca is definitely going to get a lot better. Luca lives in Canada. For everybody who thought that he called him the Canadian in the pod, I thought that was really funny, but he actually was born in Hawaii and now just lives in Canada. So he's American by citizenship, by birth, by everything, except for where he lives now. I don't even think he's actually technically a Canadian citizen yet. That's how American he is. And yet we called him the Canadian anyways, and that'll probably be his moniker from now on anyways. But him and Brian ended up 0-2 and here in the Toilet Bowl finals, and Kyle and JJ did as well. Kyle and JJ had two pretty tough matchups from what I recall. They played, I want to say they played Justin from Pickleball, etc., and Right Side Will round 1. And then they played Braden and Matt Corey from Matt's Pickleball in round 2. So those are two pretty tough matchups, especially the second one being host versus co-host. There was no way Braden was going to let Kyle off the hook in that one. So coming here to the Toilet Bowl finals, the way it works is the team that loses this match ends up winning the Toilet Bowl. So it's absolutely not an award that anybody wanted to win coming into this. And unfortunately, Brian, as you can see from the result there, Brian and Luca ended up taking that. So that was unfortunate for sure. But again, I think Luca is a guy who has a group of players that play a certain play style, and he also mostly plays tennis. And for anybody who might cross train or has ever tried, you probably understand that cross training tennis, like pickleball, is pretty bad for your tennis game. So I think if Luca were to focus on pickleball a little bit more, just a little bit more in the next 3-6 months even, he would get to where the vast majority of us are at. And I think the result would have been very different because Brian himself is a solid player. So yeah, definitely a little uncharacteristic of both of them, of any of these guys to end up down there, honestly. Kyle and JJ beat up on me and somebody else the day before. Yeah, so it definitely wasn't an expected outcome. But Kyle and JJ narrowly avoid taking the Toilet Bowl, and Brian and Luca ended up having that honor. So now if we go back into the Nerdy Tourney side, so this is essentially how things shaked out. So we had the 7 teams, those of us that won our first round, and then Pickleball, Will, and John from Speak Pickleball were the one team to make it out of the Toilet Bowl bracket back into the Nerdy Tourney. So that's how they set up the quarterfinals there. You can see here that me and Chris went into that quarterfinal, and that is where we ultimately ended up dropping. And that was where we got knocked out of the tournament. To be honest, that team of Brent Darden, who is Pickle Farm and is the co-host of Dustin from Pickleball Medicine, that team with him and Lynn Hopkins, which is Farmer Lanky Pickleball, that is the team that I thought was going to win the whole thing. I thought it was unfortunate that me and Chris got matched up against them so early. We played them the night before, just in a rec game at the park, and I think we lost maybe 8-11 or 9-11, something like that. It was the last game of the day for all of us. We were all kind of tired, but it was a really close match and it was really fun. So I came into this with some level of confidence that we already played them, and we had a pretty decent, I thought what we had was a good game plan against them. And that just unfortunately was not the case. They took us 15-9. I felt the game may have been a little bit closer than what you saw. I got some pretty gnarly battle scars from a couple of the net cords that we had there in that game. I was trying to go for every ball. I was really trying to sort of ball out there. I was like, I can't be on camera with Chris looking like a shit player, essentially. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough from either of us. And so Brett and Lynn took that and then went on to narrowly lose in semis to Steven Mijangos Steven Mijangos. I'm going to say his name right because I have a history of doing that on this channel. So Steven Mijangos was to him and Lewis Kobetz from Pickleball Pursuit. So from the semis onward were really, really, really good matches. These were definitely these were the final four that I was actually not the final four I was expecting. Steven and Lewis got pickled by me and Chris the night before. If either of you see this and you deny it, Chris is going to release the footage because I wasn't recording. But that happened, as did Matthew Lee, who is a local and really cool guy. Shout out to Matt. A lot of Matts in this bracket. In this event, but him and David from Tickle My Pickleball, me and Chris beat both of them pretty handily the night before, and so it only goes to show, tournament mentality versus rec play mentality can be so different, and conditions change, and in the end it's, did you perform on that day? It's not always indicative of how good you are as a player. It just means, can you take advantage of how good you're playing that day. But regardless, both of those teams are great players, and they showed up and showed out here in the tournament. In the end, Justin and Right Side Will defeat Mijangos and Lewis in the final. And that was definitely expected. Once you guys see the gameplay, I'm sure Justin and Lewis will talk about it on their pod. Right Side Will has one of the nastiest drives that I have ever seen. His drive is so flat and so dipping and so incredibly hard. That guy would be scary with a power paddle in his hands. He was using the Wild Thing, which is the second paddle that Bread and Butter gave out to us. And I'll definitely show you guys that one as well. But he was using the Wild Thing, and he was absolutely ripping the ball. It was pretty incredible to watch, but him and Justin, he was driving and Justin would crash, which he does really well. Justin can be hit or miss depending on the day, especially if you've seen any footage from the Adidas event. It goes for all of us. A lot of us played pretty terribly at Adidas. But that day he was just on. And when he was on and Right Side Will was on, they were just a pretty unbeatable team. They were scary to go against. So shout out to those guys. They end up winning the Nerdy Tourney, taking the crown as the nerdiest nerds for this year. I'll definitely be coming for that belt next year if the event is hosted again. I'm sure that we'll have different teams and different dynamics and all of that good stuff, but it'll definitely, if this event were to continue, it would be a bucket list item of mine in pickleball for sure to win this. But yeah, that's pretty much the tournament there. The only other thing I would say is that we had two pretty notable individuals missing. We had John Q, who was originally supposed to just come out and at least hang out because he did hurt his foot a week before the tournament or so, but he actually was developing blood clots in his leg that would have made it very dangerous for him to fly. So he unfortunately was not able to come at all. And then the night before the tournament starts, Jacob Hosington from All Drive No Drop gets the flu and ends up in the ER. So him and David Yang have to split, and David ends up having to play with Matt, who is a local and a BNB ambassador. You see here, they end up making semis. So it's interesting to think about where they could have ended up as a team, Jacob and David, if they would have even made it that far, if it hadn't been for David playing with Matt then. So they could have done worse. They could have even done better. But David is a solid 5-0 plus player. So regardless, that team was going to do well. I thought it was pretty uncharacteristic the night before how that game shook out with me and Chris. But yeah, that was you think about it in the back of your head. John Q was supposed to play with Matt Hoffman from Dinking and Driving, who ended up, I believe, going 0-2. So I think that there could have been some shakeups here and there, but you will have to wait until next year to see how, again, if this event gets hosted again. I'm sure we'll all have to meet up and at least, try and, do some version of this again. We'll need to check back in every single year and see how people's skills are progressing, whether or not it's Nerdy Tourney or elsewhere. So we'll see how those guys stack up the next time we can get together and do something like this. Okay, well, that pretty much wraps up the experience there at the Nerdy Tourney. Again, I think I spent most of the time today talking about the tournament just because there are so many things going on, so many dynamics to keep track of and things like that. But in reality, the most important thing was definitely just the celebration that we had of each other, how far we've all come in our individual journeys. It was more about that than it ever was about how we played on the court. I will say, definitely people took the tournament seriously. I think that if anybody tries to blame their performance on not taking the tournament seriously, that just isn't true. I think we were all, when we showed up, Doug was mentioning, he was like, hey, I just, I put the tournament together. Hopefully it's just another fun component of the weekend. And we were all like, Doug, we're about to take this pretty seriously because there are bragging rights on the line. So we all took it pretty seriously. I think nerves got the best of some people. I think, lack of chemistry between teams got the advantage of others. And that's always going to be a factor. But in the end, we all definitely tried to play our best and put our best foot forward. So... but regardless, it never felt like the focus. The tournament ran from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday. So we had all this other time just to sort of, again, play pickleball, of course, but really just connect with each other. And it was almost like a social media summit almost of sorts. And just Bread and Butter just made it feel like they were facilitators more than they were trying to get any type of, marketing or type of push any agenda out of us. And that is, that in the end, is just something that I'm extremely grateful for. And, I keep saying it, but I hope they do host it again. And if they do, it's always something that I'm going to make time for in my calendar. But yeah, so with all that said, let's talk about a couple of paddles that I got. So the first one here is actually not a Bread and Butter paddle. This is actually Pickleball Will's brand. So shout out to Will. He gave me one of these paddles, and you'll understand why in a second. His company is called My City Pickleball. They are undergoing, they were just going to make fun paddles originally, but have decided to sort of go towards the performance paddle route a little bit as well. And so My City Pickleball, kind of on the nose, it is paddles with the skyline of different cities on them. So this is actually the Dallas skyline. For those of you that don't know, I'm local to the DFW area, and so this was super sick. The paddle actually played like very solid Gen 2 style. Not too much that I could find wrong with it off the initial hits. A little bit heavy maybe in terms of swing weight, but it's definitely a paddle that I want to play a little bit more with. And regardless, it goes into, the list of some of the more unique paddles that are part of my collection. So shout out to Will for giving me this. Will is a great guy to be around as well. Again, he's not only super chill in how he is as a person, but in how he plays pickleball, which is what makes him dangerous, because he has all the shots in his bag and all the angles you could possibly want, and yet he can do them in such a way that he doesn't have to seem like he's trying all the time. And that's what makes him dangerous. But yeah, this was sick. I got some minutes in with this, and you'll be hearing more about it later for sure. Now let's talk BNB paddles. So the first one here is the Psycho. So you can see the Psycho here. It takes after the Fat Boy shape. It is more of a standard / wide body-ish looking paddle. These, by the way, these are not the final graphics. You'll notice here that the edge guards aren't even branded or anything like that. I don't believe these are the final graphics of how this will look. because this is blacked out. If you know BNB, they don't do blacked out stuff. But maybe they'll change it this time around. But again, I don't believe so. This is a 14 mil. It's a unibody T700 carbon fiber. I believe what they're messing around with this is black polypropylene, and they're doing it in this one, and they may or may not be doing it in the Wild Thing. But this paddle, and because of that, I remember before learning that this is black polypropylene, I thought it gave me very Engage Pursuit Pro feeling off the face. And that explains a lot because they also, if I remember correctly, use black polypropylene. So yeah, very much more reactive face. It's a 14 mil, so it's a bit on the thinner side. And I think this is going to be a pretty good addition to their lineup, a little bit more of a power-oriented wide body. So that is probably of the other paddles that I hit, probably the only other one that I would have used. It's the one I got the most minutes on outside of my Fat Boy. And yeah, I thought very highly of it. Now let's look at the Wild Thing. So the Wild Thing is an elongated paddle. It's a 3K carbon fiber weave here on this one. It is a thermoform, but not unibody. And again, it's 16 mil, also using that black polypropylene. What stands out most about the Wild Thing is not just the grit level and how great it is, but also it is extremely light for an elongated paddle. If you look at a lot of the gameplay from this most recent weekend, of the people that were using the one of these two newer paddles that we literally got on arrival, nobody was sent these ahead of time. We literally got them the day we arrived. Most people use the Wild Thing, and it's because it has definitely some more power and oomph behind it than the Psycho. But when I first hit it, I wasn't a huge fan. I thought that it was definitely a little bit lacking in terms of sweet spot size and things like that. It is still Gen 2. However, most people, I will say, again, this is not the paddle I put the most minutes on because I just didn't like it on the initial hit. And I was really, again, just trying to play my best for the tournament. A lot of people put tape all the way from the throat, all the way probably halfway up the sides here. And they said that this is one of the best, probably the best bread and butter paddle that they have released so far. So, and that was a pretty consistent note. So it's definitely on my list. It'll be in the queue to go ahead and throw some weight on this and try it again. Yeah, in the end, it may just not be for me. And of course, I'll talk more about that in my experience with it. But I will say a lot of other content creators and reviewers really liked that one. And that was just sort of the overall vibe. But yeah, that is all of the paddles that I got. They almost didn't make it in the luggage. It was bulging, and I only brought personal item and carry-on for a Southwest flight, but I'm happy that I made it back in one piece, and so did they. But yeah, guys, that wraps up pretty much everything I've got to say about the tournament. Again, have a lot of thank yous to say. Thank you to Doug, his wife Julie, and everybody at BNB that conceived the idea, and shout out to Aurora, Devin, everybody else, the ambassadors, Matt, Brandon, Big Red over there, who played in the tournament and helped us make sure that it went on. Shout out to Paul Lee for making sure everything with the software was up to date so that we could figure out the progression of the tournament. There's just we're, again, hard to put into words how grateful I was to be a part of something like this, and hopefully it's something that we can all as a group just get back together and do every single year. Yeah, shout out to all the other creators who were there, all ones that everybody that I met. Thanks, thanks for hanging out and being cool people. Shout out to a particular shout out to Lewis from Pickleball Pursuit for allowing me to be his passenger princess all weekend and not making me pay $200 to Uber from Vero Beach to from Orlando, where we landed, to Vero Beach. So truly a lifesaver. And yeah, finally, shout out to all of you guys. You guys are being a part of the journey, watching the videos, and, you know, commenting, you know, sharing my videos with others. You guys are the reason that I'm allowed to do incredible stuff like this. And if any of you guys are on the journey to do something like this and what I'm doing, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is just make the fucking video. Make the video. Similar to this, right? This is going to be a lot longer than all the pods that I shoot with Aaron. And it's going to be pretty much uncut. And I'm fine with that. Just make the video. I'm excited. I want to share with you guys everything that went down, everything that I learned about everybody and my experience. And I just want to do that regardless of whether this video was 7 minutes or 50 minutes like it's about to be. But yeah, that just, I feel very grateful to be where I'm at and that I got to do this. And again, hopefully it's not the last time that something like this happens. But with all that said, again, you guys, thank you so much for watching. If you made it here to the end, make sure you like and subscribe. Comment down below any thoughts you have about my experience or anything else you want to know. As usual, I'll be responding to comments. And I hope you all stay happy and healthy and, of course, out on the courts. And maybe we'll see you in the next Nerdy Tourney. Peace.